So if we read the first reading this morning just as it is absolutely confusing about trees and having them reign over each other. But in the context, we've been kind of we started reading Judges this week. And one of the things that kind of comes out in the book of Judges is this Jotham. He's one of the judges. He comes and proclaims against Abimelech, the king. Right before that, we had the great judge of Gideon. And so there were 12 judges in the book of Judges, and each one was appointed a judge at a certain time to do a certain task to accomplish something for the Lord. After they would do that, they were found to be virtuous during this action, but then each one of the judges kind of fell from grace, if you will. In Gideon was known for, he had 10,000 recruits, then he only ended up with 300, and he ended up decimating one of the enemies of Israel. But then afterwards, he does everything but proclaim himself king. And he becomes a little bit corrupt at the end of his life. And so what Jotham is doing, he's telling the people of Israel, hey, you're calling out for a king. We already have a king. It's God. And so ultimately, the book of Judges leads to Samuel, and then we get King Saul and King David, because the people of Israel wanted to be like other nations and have a king, a personal king, rather than to be a nation set aside for the Lord, who is the true king. And so that's kind of an important context to think about when you go back to this reading. And in the gospel, we have that wonderful parable of the workers in the vineyard and the receiving of the just wage. And today we celebrate St. Bernard of Clairvaux, a doctor of the church. And he kind of ties in this theme. The underlying theme of this gospel is how much God loves us and how much he gives us if we but turn our attention, our love to him. St. Bernard would say, love is the only action that we can give of ourselves to receive something, especially in terms of our relationship with God. When we love God, when we give our love to God, even though it is not equal on any level to the love that God gives us, when we give ourselves to the Lord in love, he repays it in overabundance. And so even here, we have all these people coming in, laborers working in the field. You have the last people to come receive the fullness of a day's wage. Thomas Aquinas and St. Therese of Lisieux would say, they're receiving the fullness of grace. But each person has a greater capacity to receive more grace. But when we are all brought into heaven, regardless of when we had our reversion or conversion, we receive whatever our capacity is, we receive the fullness. That's like the day's wage. So someone like Thomas Aquinas probably has a 50-gallon drum full of grace, whereas probably myself or someone else has probably got like a little tablespoon of grace. But we receive the fullness based on the capacity that we have. What we're called to do is to continually turn ourselves or direct our gaze to the Lord. And rather than focus on ourselves, focus on him. And he will give us the daily wage that we need to receive the fullness of grace.